March 1957. Elvis Presley, just 22 years old, gave his parents Vernon and Gladys a budget of $100,000 and told them to find a farmhouse with privacy and space. They'd been living in a house on Audubon Drive in Memphis for less than a year, but it had become impossible. Fans camped outside 24 hours a day. Neighbors complained. Elvis couldn't walk out his front door without being mobbed. When Gladys and Vernon returned from Hollywood, where they'd been visiting Elvis on the set of his second movie, Loving You, they began their search. On March 16, 1957, they found it, a white columned mansion on 13.8 acres, miles outside the main Memphis area. It was called Graceland. When Elvis saw it, he immediately said it was just the thing he was looking for and put down a $1,000 deposit. But what happened when Elvis showed his mother, Gladys, around that mansion for the first time would change everything. What she said in that moment made Elvis break down crying and make a promise he would keep for the rest of his life. This is the true story of how a 22-year-old kid from Tupelo, Mississippi, who'd been poor his whole life, bought the most famous house in America, and why the mansion meant so much more than just a home. 1956 had been a whirlwind year for Elvis Presley. It wasn't until 1956 that Presley had his first #1 hit, Heartbreak Hotel. In the same year, Presley appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, at which point millions tuned in and became captivated by his performance. Everything happened so fast. One year, Elvis was a truck driver making $35 a week. The next year, he was the biggest star in America. The money came pouring in, and the first thing Elvis did was buy his parents a house. He had already bought one house for his parents on Audubon Avenue in East Memphis. It was a modest ranch-style home at 1034 Audubon Drive. The first home Presley had purchased in 1956 cost $29,500 at the time. For Vernon and Gladys Presley, who'd lived in poverty their entire lives, it was a palace. "I can't believe this is ours," Gladys told Elvis when they first moved in. "Our own house, no landlord, no eviction notices, just ours." Elvis smiled. "You deserve it, Mama, after everything you've done for me." Gladys had worked herself to exhaustion when Elvis was growing up, sewing curtains, picking cotton, anything to keep food on the table while Vernon struggled to hold down jobs. She believed in Elvis when nobody else did, encouraged his music when others said it was a waste of time. Now, finally, Elvis could give back. But the Audubon Drive house came with a problem Elvis hadn't anticipated: fans. Within weeks of moving in, word got out where Elvis lived. Teenagers started showing up. At first just a few, then dozens, then hundreds. They camped on the lawn, knocked on the door at all hours, peeked in windows, took souvenirs from the yard, flowers, grass, anything Elvis might have touched. The neighbors were not happy. "Mr. Presley," one neighbor said to Vernon, "we appreciate having a celebrity in the neighborhood, but this is too much. The crowds, the noise, the traffic, it's become unbearable." Vernon tried to be diplomatic. "I understand, we're working on it." But there was no working on it. Elvis was too famous. The problem would only get worse. Gladys hated it. She couldn't garden without fans watching, couldn't sit on the porch, couldn't have a normal life. She'd wanted this house so badly, and now it felt like a prison. "We need to move," Gladys told Vernon in early 1957. "This isn't working." "Move? We just got here." "I know, but Elvis needs privacy. We all do. We need space, distance from the city, a place where fans can't just show up." In mid-March 1957, Vernon and Gladys Presley returned to their home in Memphis. They had been in Hollywood visiting their son on the set of his second movie, Loving You. Due to problems caused by crowds of kids hanging around the Presley house on Audubon Drive, Elvis's parents began searching for a larger, more private property. Elvis gave his parents, Vernon and Gladys, a budget of $100,000 and asked them to find a farmhouse-like property to purchase with buffer space around it.
Vernon and Gladys drove all over the Memphis area looking at properties. Most were either too small, too close to neighbors or too expensive. Then their real estate agent mentioned a property in Whitehaven, several miles south of Memphis's main urban area. It was a mansion, way bigger than anything Elvis had talked about, but it had the privacy they needed. "How much?" Vernon asked. "They're asking around $100,000, maybe a little more." Vernon whistled. That was exactly Elvis's budget. But a mansion? Elvis had said farmhouse. Still, they agreed to look. His parents, Vernon and Gladys, saw it first and placed a $1,000 down payment on March 16, 1957. When Vernon and Gladys drove up the long driveway and saw Graceland for the first time, they were stunned. The mansion was a colonial revival style built in 1939 by Dr. and Mrs. Thomas More. Dr. and Mrs. Thomas More named it after Mrs. Moore's Aunt Grace Toof, the original landowner. It was 10,266 square feet, white columns, grand entrance, set on 13.8 acres of wooded property. "This is too much," Gladys said. "Elvis wanted a farmhouse." But Vernon saw something different. He saw possibility, privacy, space for Elvis to breathe. "Let's at least show it to him," Vernon said. They called Elvis in Hollywood. "Son, we found something. It's not exactly what you described, but you should see it." Elvis flew back to Memphis immediately. When Elvis saw it, he immediately decided that Graceland was just the thing he was looking for and put a $1,000 deposit on the property. "This is going to be a lot nicer than Red Skelton's house when I get it like I want it," Elvis told the press Scimitar. He was referring to the comedian's showcase hilltop home in Hollywood. "We have found a house that we like very much," announced Vernon Presley, "and we will buy it if we can come to terms."
On March 19, 1957, with a $1,000 cash deposit against a sale price of $102,500, Elvis Presley agreed to purchase the home called Graceland. It was more than his budget, but Elvis didn't care. This was perfect. "I think I'm going to like this new home," Gladys Presley told the press Scimitar. "We'll have a lot more privacy and a lot more room to put some of the things we have accumulated over the last few years." Vernon Presley was more concerned about the hassles involved in changing residences. They'd just moved into Audubon Drive. Now they were moving again to an even bigger place that would need work. Elvis had big plans for Graceland. He immediately hired interior decorator George Golden to start renovations. "I want the darkest blue there is for my room," Elvis told the press Scimitar, "with a mirror that will cover one side of the room. I probably will have a black bedroom suite trimmed in white leather with a white rug." He wanted clouds and stars painted on the ceiling of the entrance hall. "I think it would be great," he said. For the living, dining, and sunrooms, Elvis ordered purple walls with white corduroy drapes. Finally, Gladys, who had listened quietly to her son's bizarre color scheme, spoke up. She vetoed the purple walls. Too much. The Presleys didn't plan on moving into their new home until April 15th. 3 weeks were set aside for redecorating and remodeling. The process took a month longer than expected. The Presleys finally moved into Graceland on May 16th. But before the renovations started, Elvis wanted to show his mother the whole property, just the two of them. It was a spring afternoon in late March 1957. Elvis and Gladys walked through the empty mansion, their footsteps echoing in the unfurnished rooms. "Look at this, Mama," Elvis said, showing her room after room. "You can have any room you want. We can fix it up however you like." Gladys was quiet. She walked through the mansion, taking it all in. The grand staircase, the formal dining room, the huge windows overlooking the grounds. They went outside and walked the property, 13.8 acres, more land than Gladys had ever imagined owning. Then Gladys stopped walking. She looked at Elvis with tears in her eyes. "What's wrong, Mama?" Elvis asked, concerned. "I remember," Gladys said quietly, "when we lived in that shotgun shack in Tupelo. 2 rooms,
No running water, your daddy in prison, me working whatever jobs I could find, barely keeping us fed. Elvis nodded. He remembered too. The poverty, the hunger, the shame. I remember, Gladys continued, praying every night that you'd have a better life, that you wouldn't have to struggle the way we did, that somehow, some way, things would get better. They did get better, Mama. Better? Gladys looked at the mansion behind them. Baby, this isn't better. This is a miracle. This is beyond anything I ever dreamed. Elvis felt tears stinging his eyes. You did this, Gladys said, with your voice, with your talent, with your heart. You took us from nothing to this, she gestured at Graceland, and I'm so proud of you I could burst. Elvis hugged his mother, both of them crying now. But I need you to promise me something, Gladys said, pulling back to look at him. Anything, Mama. Promise me you'll never forget where you came from. Promise me you'll stay humble, stay kind, stay the sweet boy I raised, no matter how famous you get or how much money you make. I promise, Mama. And promise me, Gladys continued, that you'll always take care of family, that this house will always be a home, not just a mansion, that people will feel love here. I promise, Elvis said. This will be our home, all of us, forever. That promise, made on the grounds of Graceland in March 1957, would define the rest of Elvis's life.
Elvis did not stay at Graceland until June 26, 1957. The renovations took longer than expected, but Elvis used that time to add his personal touches. The mansion's famous gates, adorned with musical notes, were added in 1957. Elvis also had a kidney-shaped swimming pool installed later that year. He even reportedly kept donkeys in his kidney-shaped swimming pool, added in 1957, before it was filled. When the Presley family finally moved in on May 16, 1957, Gladys made good on turning the mansion into a home. She cooked in the kitchen, invited family over, made sure there was always food, always laughter, always love. Besides Presley's love for fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches, he insisted that there be cans of sauerkraut, fresh banana pudding, and chewing gum available in the Graceland kitchen at all times. The singer also had a buzzer installed underneath his seat at the table in case he wanted anything else. Elvis kept his promise to his mother. Graceland wasn't just a house, it was home. In December, as his first Christmas at Graceland neared, Elvis bought a Santa and reindeer display for the front lawn. 4 days later, Elvis picked up his draft notice. That Christmas would be the only one the Presleys would spend together at Graceland. Elvis's mother passed away the following August, and the next 2 Christmas seasons found him in Germany. Gladys Presley died on August 14, 1958, just 16 months after moving into Graceland. She was only 46 years old. Elvis was devastated. He'd bought Graceland for her, to give her the life she deserved, and she'd barely had time to enjoy it. But Elvis kept his promise. Graceland remained a home, not just a mansion. He lived there for 20 years, from 1957 until his death in 1977. When Presley purchased Graceland, he purchased a mansion that would continue to draw people long after his death. Today, Graceland has over 500,000 visitors each year, a fact that makes it the most visited home in the United States. It was opened to the public as a house museum on June 7, 1982, and attracts more than 650,000 visitors annually. Graceland was listed in the National Register of Historic Places on November 7, 1991, becoming the first site recognized for significance related to rock music. It was declared a National Historic Landmark on March 27, 2006, also a first for such a site. Following Elvis's death at the house in 1977, Priscilla Presley, who was by that time divorced from the singer, took over the management of the estate and turned it into a money-making enterprise. After Lisa Marie Presley's death in January 2023, Priscilla Presley contested the validity of her daughter's will. Following a settlement, sole ownership of Graceland was awarded to Riley Keough, Lisa Marie's daughter. It is estimated that tourism to Graceland contributes some $150 million to the economy of Memphis. But the real legacy of Graceland isn't the tourism or the money. It's what that mansion represented to Elvis and Gladys. For Gladys, it was proof that her prayers had been answered, that her son had escaped poverty, that all her sacrifices meant something. For Elvis, it was a promise kept, a way to honor his mother, a reminder of where he came from and what mattered most. Elvis Presley paid $102,500 for Graceland. Adjusted for inflation, this equates to approximately $1.1 million today. Presley had only been topping the charts for about 1 year when he bought Graceland. This alone is indicative of how quickly he became successful. Presley grew up with significant financial difficulties, so none of this was inherited wealth. A 22-year-old kid who'd been dirt poor bought a mansion for his parents, and in doing so, created the most famous house in America. The promise Elvis made to Gladys on the grounds of Graceland in March 1957, to never forget where he came from, to stay humble, to keep Graceland a home filled with love. He kept that promise until the day he died. March 1957. Elvis Presley, 22 years old, bought Graceland for $102,500. He bought it for his mother, to give her the life she deserved. What Gladys said when she saw it, about remembering where they came from, staying humble, keeping it home, made Elvis cry and make a promise he never broke. Graceland wasn't just a mansion. It was a promise, a prayer answered, a dream fulfilled. And 65 years later, it still stands as a testament to a son's love for his mother. If this story of promises kept and dreams fulfilled inspired you, subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with someone who understands that home isn't about size or cost. It's about love. Have you ever kept a promise to a parent that changed your life? Let us know in the comments. Ring that bell for more verified Elvis stories.